But let's go first to the fallout from Fairfax Media's drastic restructuring and the story running in parallel, Gina Rinehart's bid for control of the company. Today, staff at the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age and the Australian Financial Review demanded that the world's richest woman adhere to the company's Charter of Editorial Independence before she accepts a seat on the board. After spending $200 million to amass close to 19% of Fairfax, Mrs Rinehart wants 3 board seats, but she's so far refusing to sign the charter. And a major institutional investor in the company has told Lateline that Fairfax should not prop up its flagging newspapers with its profitable rural press and digital businesses. Hamish Fitzsimmons reports.
In 1988, the board of Fairfax and its journalists agreed on a Charter of Independence, giving the newspaper's editors full editorial control. Today, the staff of The Age and the Sydney Morning Herald demanded Gina Rinehart commit to the charter, something she's reportedly reluctant to do.
That has protected the assets of Fairfax. It has protected the readers, it's protected the community, and it's also protected the journalists. And that is now what is under direct challenge by Mrs Rinehart.
Mrs Rinehart doesn't have a seat on the Fairfax board yet, but is demanding 3. Possibly expanding the current board from 8 to 11.
Then she would be able to set the editorial direction of the company and presumably set aside that Charter of Editorial Independence.
Corporate law experts like Professor Ian Ramsey believe change is on the way and that Mrs Rinehart will boost her current 19% ownership.
It would be very rare for her to sit patiently by and just wait, because after all, nothing is happening with her investment, so to speak. She's looking for direct influence. How can she get it? She can get it by having her own representatives in the boardroom.
Institutional shareholders in Fairfax believe change in the papers may be a good thing.
You can't go on the way you're going now because your costs are starting to exceed your revenue. And so people are not willing to pay for the cost for the news you're currently gathering.
To get on the board of Fairfax, Mrs Rinehart has options. She could call an extraordinary general meeting of the company to put her candidacy forward, or she could convince a majority of shareholders to support her bid, or she could buy more than 30% of Fairfax's stock, effectively making her the majority shareholder in the company.
Should that takeover bid be successful, so she effectively owns a majority of the shares in the company, then under typical governance rules and typical expectations, she can then hire and fire, set the direction of the company according to what she wants.
Simone Murray, whose investment firm Allan Gray owns 8% of the company, met with Fairfax management today and told them the current crisis needs to be dealt with promptly.
You have to make the Metro sustainable, the Metro papers and the whole businesses around that. And then secondly, we have to be sure that we don't use the profits from the rest of the businesses, which are the rural businesses and the digital businesses, to prop up a business that's dying.
Mrs Rinehart's family is no stranger to the media. She owns 10% of the 10 network, and in 1969 her father Lang Hancock, one of the pioneers of Western Australia's mining industry, started his own Sunday newspaper. Pre-eminent historian Geoffrey Blaney says the relationship between Australian mining magnates and newspapers goes back a long way.
In the 19th century, the most influential newspaper owner was a woman, Alice Conwell. She made her money out of gold mining near Ballarat, and then she went to London in 1887 and bought the famous newspaper, the Sunday Times, and owned it for 6 years and ran it with great success. So the idea of a female mining magnate being prominent in newspaper ownership is not new.
Professor Blaney says David Syme, who founded The Age, was also a miner.
He didn't come to The Age as a newspaper man. He was a gold miner in Victoria around Ballarat and Bendigo in the 1850s, then was working as, I think, a road contractor, and then acquired commanding interest in The Age.
And it's not just mining proprietors who see newspapers as a way of wielding influence.
All kinds of economic interests would like to control newspapers. Trade unions like to control newspapers if they can. In fact, the Barrier Daily Truth, the only daily newspaper at Broken Hill, has been controlled for more than 100 years by the trade union movement.
Hamish Fitzsimmons, Late Line.